China is seeking to expand its influence into the Caribbean. China is building a new outpost right on America's doorstep. Welcome to China Uncensored. I'm Chris Chappell. Well, Bob Marley, I'm afraid it looks like the U.S. does have to worry about quite a few things, because China is seeking to expand its influence into the Caribbean, and the Caribbean is allowing it. You shouldn't be surprised the Caribbean is open to working with China. After all, they do love pirates. A Newsweek report this month revealed that China is building a new outpost right on America's doorstep in the small two-island nation of Antigua and Barbuda. Hey, China, get off our lawn. It's just 220 miles away from the U.S. Virgin Islands. The Chinese company is setting up a special economic zone for state-owned companies and allied private businesses. So what does that mean? Well, basically, China has a little piece of Antigua to call its own. The special economic zone will contain a shipping port and a dedicated airline, run its own customs and immigration, and even be able to issue passports. It's also set to host facilities where Antiguan officials study the works of Xi Jinping. Isn't that nice? There are no commercial restrictions for the zone and zero taxes, so businesses can move in freely. What kind of businesses? Well, currently the Special Economic Zone is set to host businesses in logistics, facial surgery, cryptocurrencies, both selling and mining, and virology. Virology, good. What could go wrong? It's almost as if China is trying to establish an entirely new country in an independent country. Now, the Special Economic Zone is not really new. It's a new agreement with a new company. But they're taking over the area from a previous venture that didn't quite pan out as hoped. That agreement was signed in 2015. China has been increasing its ties with and influence in other Caribbean countries as well. Earlier this year, Trinidad and Tobago commissioned the Caribbean's first project under China's Belt and Road Initiative. TNT, as the country is known, opened the Phoenix Park Industrial Estate in January, which was financed by the Export-Import Bank of China. I assume it's called Phoenix Park because, like the mythical bird, it will go down in a ball of flames. TBD on if it will rise again, though. The park is meant to facilitate increased production of Trinidadian products bound for the North American market, which sounds great, but at what cost to TNT? Other countries in the Caribbean are also taking money from China, such as Dominica, Barbados, and Jamaica. It's like China's singing that old song, Aruba, Jamaica, ooh, I want to take you by economic coercion. But this new development regarding Antigua seems especially concerning. I'll tell you why after the break. Welcome back. Antigua joined China's Belt and Road Initiative back in 2018, declaring China the country's lender of first choice, with 2% interest rates and a 5-year moratorium on repayments. China gave hundreds of millions of dollars in loans to Antigua in order to extensively build water systems, ports, and airports. And Antigua's Prime Minister, Gaston Brown, couldn't praise the CCP or its dear leader enough. While lamenting that the West hasn't been so helpful to his country, Brown said that he sees China as a country that stands on truth and a country that has some level of empathy for small states, and generally for poor and dispossessed persons globally. Yes, China cares so much about the poor and dispossessed Uyghurs, they gave them free room and board for life. Brown also stated that Xi Jinping seems to have a base, a global view in terms of a common humanity. Have a base? Yeah, a base in your country. And the only humanity the CCP has is in terms of, the humanity. In January, Prime Minister Brown inaugurated his country's embassy to Beijing while traveling in China. He even posed for pictures with Li Keqiang. It's no wonder that the Prime Minister has fallen for Xi's talking points. At an Antigua branch of the University of the West Indies, there is now an office of the Confucius Institute. And currently there are 88 Antiguan students studying at Chinese universities, with the CCP offering generous scholarships to gradually expand this number. After the Newsweek report broke, both China and Antigua and Barbuda dismissed it as Cold War-era rhetoric, and reaffirmed that China wants to cooperate with all countries, supposedly on the principles of fairness and justice. But Washington isn't convinced, and neither are its European or Asian allies. And I doubt much of anyone else believes that the CCP is dedicated to fairness or justice either. The Florida-based U.S. Southern Command, also known as SOUTHCOM, pointed out that China has a history of bankrupting countries in order to seize control of their ports, which can then be used for military or intelligence purposes. See Sri Lanka's Hambantota port, or Pakistan's Gwadar port. Southcom said that given the breadth of investment China has made in the Caribbean, we are concerned that China could task its state-owned enterprises and all diaspora to conduct intelligence or influence operations against the U.S. and our partners in the region for military purposes. What? China? Spy? No. China has become the biggest scammers on the planet, even overtaking Nigerian princes. Heck, Nigerian princes may be falling for China's scam. China also has constructed a huge embassy in Antigua's capital, St. John's, nicknamed the Fortress because of its size and security measures. Asian and European diplomats on the island have suspicions that Chinese intelligence operations are being run out of the embassy, in addition to its suspected intelligence facilities in Cuba, which of course Havana and Beijing both deny exist. And I believe that. I mean, it's not like Cuba and China are both communist nations. What's next? You're going to tell me that peanut butter would work well with jelly? Typical capitalist lies. China has also refused to comment on allegations that it's using Antigua as an intelligence base. And Prime Minister Brown told Newsweek that suggestions that China was operating an intelligence base were utter rubbish. But as we've seen repeatedly, these BRI projects don't tend to go well for the countries involved. Most of these global mega projects are falling apart. The countries involved trapped in debt to China. And things are already going badly in Antigua. A lot of this special economic zone is being built in crucial natural preserves, including mangrove swamps that help protect the island from severe damage during hurricanes. There was also a big scandal when China wanted to extradite an Antigua citizen. The chairwoman of the country's United Progressive Party said Antigua has traded its sovereignty, I think most of us believe, to China. I think that this administration has become overly reliant on one partner, that partner being China. But this is largely because the U.S. ignored the Caribbean, including Antigua and Barbuda, at its own peril. Its embassy to St. John's closed in 1994, and U.S. foreign policy interests shifted to other parts of the globe, creating a vacuum that China could easily fill. The same thing happened in the South Pacific. The U.S. shuttered its embassy to the Solomon Islands in the 1990s and mostly forgot about the area. Then China bought off a bunch of politicians, and now they've got a security pact. The U.S. needs to remember that age-old adage, move your feet, lose your seat, to a brutal authoritarian regime. And now in the Caribbean, on America's doorstep, the U.S. is trying desperately to counter the CCP with far too little and far too late. China Uncensored only exists thanks to support from viewers like you on the crowdfunding website patreon.com/China Uncensored. Head over there to help me uncensored China, and as a thank you, I might answer one of your questions at the end of an episode. And today's question comes from Fast Zombies. So the biggest polluters and enviro hackers on Earth are blaming global warming? Oh yeah, Fast Zombies, it's true. So Fast Zombies is responding to an episode about historic floods devastating China right now. China's infrastructure has completely failed, and so the party is blaming it on climate change, while taking no responsibility for climate change. And this is typical of Marxists. I've heard it called the iron law of woke projection. They accuse others of doing exactly what they're doing. China complains about the US meddling in its internal affairs. Guess what China's doing? They accuse the US of having bad human rights. Guess how human rights are doing in China? There are a million examples of this. And one of the things I try to do on this show, and my other show, America Uncovered, is expose these Marxist tactics so you can recognize them when you see or hear them. Thanks for your question and your support, Fast Zombies. Click that orange button to join Fast Zombies on Patreon. And if you didn't know, yes, I do have other channels. Besides America Uncovered, I also have a new gaming channel where I hide controversial takes on news and politics in gaming. And there's been some big controversy about this one. Click here and let me know what you think. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.